Concerns are being raised over Republican state lawmakers across the country who have proposed and in some instances passed legislation that they say keeps the government from interfering with doctors who want to prescribe ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine to help prevent and treat COVID-19. But as Yahoo News notes, those treatments have not been proven effective at preventing or treating COVID, and infectious disease experts see the bills as examples of right-wing lawmakers politicizing the medicine. Joining us now to discuss is co-founder and co-executive director of Ultraviolet, Shauna Thomas, and White House reporter for Real Clear Politics, Philip Wegman. Welcome to you both.
Good morning.
Thanks.
Now, but Shauna, isn't it, I don't think I've looked at the studies and what people are saying, and it looks to me like hydroxychloroquine is not effective whatsoever, and ivermectin is not effective or maybe slightly effective in certain cases, but it's not clear that it's actually addressing COVID or just other problems that the person might be having. That said, I don't know why shouldn't it be up to doctors to decide what they're prescribing to their patients. I think the state doesn't need to get involved, but it looks like the state's saying, yes, some other authority can't get between your doctor and you in deciding on this. What's wrong with that?
Well, it sounds to me like what they're actually saying is that patients should be the only people taking on any risk whatsoever around the treatments that they take, and they want to be protecting doctors or really essentially assuring doctors and pharmacists have no risk whatsoever, so they can just do whatever they want. I think what's really happening here, though, is that the reality of the pandemic sucks. Republicans have decided not to be adults about it, to deal with it, take the action necessary to get through it safely. So instead, they're inventing their own reality, including their own treatments. And for what purpose? There are approved treatments that have evidence of working. This is not one of those. It really defies logic. It feels like it's really it's not about policy at all. It's about sort of red meat for politicians and people who have been convinced that the scientific community isn't to be trusted and that the majority of doctors aren't to be trusted.
And Philip, how do Republicans make this kind of policy with a straight face, given what their position is on the abortion question? Like, how is it that the Republican lawmakers should be intervening, when it comes to ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine, but they're completely comfortable with the government coming in and really asserting itself into the patient-doctor relationship when it comes to reproductive health? How do they, or do they not even try to square that?
Yeah, you're going to have to square that circle for me, Ryan, because I don't see the equivalence there, and no one pays me for my opinion, so I'm not going to weigh in on either of those issues. As a White House reporter, I'm not super familiar with how different pharmacists go about their day jobs. But when it comes to filling prescriptions, it was my understanding that already a physician could prescribe something for off-brand use, which is they could potentially see a prescription and say there might be some other benefit. We're going to go ahead and do this. So I'm not certain if these laws are actually necessary, but certainly the state lawmakers who are bringing them forward believe that they are. And frankly, I think what this is evidence of, though, is that there's a politicization of these two drugs, and that's because of the overreaction of some who have said how ridiculous you are that you might want to take these things, and then also the politicization that you had a former president who was pushing both of these as potential treatments before we knew their merits, right? I think that it's interesting at this point. We're going on year 3 of the pandemic, and at this point we have a vaccine that works. We have therapies that also are, effective. And heaven forbid, worst case scenario, we have plenty of ventilators as well. I'm not certain if ivermectin or hydroxychloroquine, I can never quite say that right, are going to be the silver bullets that we need. But one would think that, libertarians and then also, liberals would say, this is your choice. Go ahead and figure out what it is that you want to do with your own body. But
I mean, that's it's hypocrisy. I see what you're saying about the abortion thing, but the hypocrisy here is on the other side, because, or it is if any Democrat is objecting to this, right? These laws might be totally unnecessary, but the point of them is just to say that the government shouldn't come between you and your doctor regarding a healthcare choice. That's just the same as the abortion thing.
Yeah, and Shauna, have you seen any of this? Because right now it seems to be a pattern that's developing, which is that Republicans say that X thing is going to happen. The government is going to ban you from getting ivermectin. And then they come in as state lawmakers and say, we're going to prevent the government from doing this thing that we claim that they're going to do, which they actually were not going to do because, like Philip said, you can prescribe off-label drugs if you want. It's up to the doctor and the patient. Are there people on the left who are trying to ban the use of hydroxychloroquine or ivermectin for off-label uses? I haven't seen that, but maybe you have.
I have not seen anything regarding putting legal restrictions on access to those drugs. I have seen a lot of effort in public education campaigns to make people aware of the truth about the trials and whether they work or not. But I think the right is, on the Republican legislatures kind of looking at this and advancing this. I think they're just trying to create conflict, right? And they sort of keep this conversation going and throwing some red meat at their base. Well,
it's a way to participate in the culture war, right? Which is what every politician wants to do, even though when they're not. And in a lot of the cases, a lot of the things we're talking about, COVID's a little bit different because there are legislative components of the COVID culture war. But other culture wars, there are not satisfying legislative solutions in many cases. So politicians don't know how do I signal to my people that I'm on their side because there's nothing actually for me to do. So here they're doing something that probably is not necessary, but that's. They're
on Team Ivermectin.
Team
right.
Well, no, but I mean, they're not. Maybe they are. Maybe some of them are. But you're not. You don't have to be on Team Ivermectin to think that. I don't know. That we'll only
say that in the Republican primary. See how that goes for you.
We'll only find out if it. Look, I don't think we have found out that it works. But we'll only find out if there's some kind of testing or prescribing of it going on, right? We should not totally foreclose off that possibility of doctors and patients trying that option, right? I think it would be crazy to do that. I don't think we need to do that. Now, and I'm not saying that's even happening, but I also wouldn't put it past media savvy and Democratic health officials to ban it. That doesn't seem crazy at all, given the level of. Vaccines are being mandated, the masks are they mandate and ban everything they want. It would not be crazy to me that they would do that.
If the culture war keeps entangling itself with science and with COVID policy, I guess you could see it polarizing in such a way that it drives it there. I find that unlikely. I don't know, Philip, what do you think?
It's interesting because there is a conservative argument to be made for the vaccines, which is obviously that this is not just something that you are going to do to protect yourself. It's something that you are going to do to prevent yourself from getting sick and giving the virus to your neighbor. And obviously, with the different variants, sometimes the facts of the matter change a little bit because some of the vaccines are not, some of the variants seem to be still transmissible even if you're vaccinated, right? So there's degrees to that argument. But when it comes to something like ivermectin or the other drug, this is something that you would personally be doing, for yourself, not necessarily to protect your neighbor. It would be some sort of measure that you would take yourself. And so I think the response generally would be, who cares? I mean, if you want to find a doctor who thinks that there are merits to this drug and you want to, have him prescribe something off brand and you want to take the risk with your own health, all right. I mean, I don't think anyone's going to be, really rallying to this, but, certainly at least some state lawmakers somewhere think that this is a winning issue. But I think everyone else at this point is sort of realizing, that there are other ways to deal with the pandemic. And, hopefully, we use the drugs and the vaccines that work and we stop searching for things that don't.
Crazy idea. So crazy it just might work.
So normal and non-crazy, it will never work, and we'll never try it.
But thanks for suggesting it anyway, Philip. And Shauna, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
And we'll have more Rising right after this.